Ravi never thought his quiet life would bring him to the center of the galaxy. He was not a soldier, not a famous scientist, and not a great leader. He was only a student who loved reading about the stars and dreaming of what might be out there. Yet, somehow, he had been chosen as part of a small exploration team that would represent Earth in the first official meeting with an alien empire. The day he stepped onto the shining platform of the alien palace, Ravi's heart pounded like a drum. He had read about royal palaces in history books, but nothing compared to this one. The walls were not made of stone or metal. They looked like living crystal, glowing softly in different colors. The light reflected on the polished floor, making the hall look like it was floating in the middle of a rainbow. Beside Ravi stood 3 other humans from Earth, all dressed in formal uniforms. The leader of the group, a calm man named Ajay, whispered to Ravi, "Stand straight, do not speak unless asked, and remember that we are guests. Every small action matters here." Ravi nodded, though his hands were sweating. He wished he could hide in the background, but fate had other plans. The great hall was filled with tall figures, the nobles of the alien empire. Their skin shimmered with patterns that moved like flowing water. Their eyes were brighter than jewels, and their voices carried a strange music, even when they spoke in their own language. In the middle of the hall was a grand throne made of crystal and silver vines. And on that throne sat the alien princess. Her name was Arena. She was young compared to the elders of her people, though still older than Ravi could imagine. Her silver hair flowed like liquid light, and her gaze was sharp but curious. Unlike the other nobles, she did not look at the Earth leaders first. She looked at Ravi. The moment their eyes met, Ravi felt as if time had stopped. He expected her to speak in her language, but instead she spoke in clear words, her voice echoing through the hall. "Human, are you married or single?" The hall went silent. Ravi blinked. He thought he had misheard. Did the princess of an alien empire just ask that question? He glanced at Ajay for help, but the leader's expression was frozen. Even the nobles looked shocked, whispering among themselves. The translators paused, unsure if they had understood correctly. Arena tilted her head, waiting for an answer. "I wish to know," she repeated, her tone calm but firm. Ravi felt heat rise in his face. He had prepared for many questions about Earth, about technology, about culture, but not for this. His mouth opened and closed like a fish. Finally, he stammered, I am single." The words left his lips before he could stop them. The silence grew deeper for a moment, then the princess smiled, as if satisfied. "Good," she said softly, and leaned back in her throne. The hall erupted into whispers again. Some nobles looked amused, others worried. Ajay stepped forward quickly, bowing deeply. "Your Highness, forgive us. This is Ravi, a humble student who has joined our team to learn and share knowledge. He did not mean to disturb your grace." But Arena raised her hand, silencing everyone. "He has not disturbed me. I simply wished to know what kind of human he is." Ravi wished the ground would open and swallow him. He could feel every eye in the hall staring at him. He tried to stand still, but his mind raced with questions. Why did she ask that? What did it mean in her culture? The formal ceremony continued after that, but Ravi hardly heard the speeches. His thoughts kept returning to the princess's question. While Ajay spoke about peace and trade, Ravi kept noticing that Arena's eyes wandered back to him again and again. She seemed less interested in the leaders and more interested in the simple student who had stumbled into the spotlight. After the meeting ended, the humans were guided to their guest chambers. The corridors were filled with soft glowing light, and the air carried a gentle, sweet scent. Ravi walked behind the others, keeping his head low, hoping no one would bring up what had happened. But as soon as they were alone, one of the team members, Mira, whispered with a grin, "Ravi, you made history." The first words spoken by the alien princess to a human, And she asked if you are married. Ravi groaned. Please, don't remind me. Ajay sighed, though there was a faint smile on his face too. We must be careful. We do not know why she asks such a thing. It might be a custom, or a test, or something else we cannot yet understand. Ravi, from now on, be cautious with your words. The princess seems interested in you. That night, Ravi could not sleep. He lay on the soft bed made of woven crystal threads, staring at the glowing ceiling. He thought about Earth, about his quiet life before this journey, and about the strange question that had changed everything. Why him? Why not Ajay or Mira or the others? He was not strong, not important, not even experienced. He was just Ravi. Yet the alien princess had looked directly at him, ignoring all others, and asked the most unexpected question. The next morning, when the humans were invited to explore the palace gardens, Ravi hoped to blend into the group. The gardens were breathtaking, filled with trees that glowed from within and flowers that sang when touched by the wind. But once again, his plan failed. As they walked along the crystal pathways, Ravi felt a presence beside him. He turned, and there was Arena, walking with quiet grace. The other humans froze, bowing slightly, but she ignored them. Her eyes stayed on Ravi. Human, she said calmly, you answered my question yesterday. I am pleased. But I have many more questions about your kind. Will you walk with me? Ravi's heart raced. He wanted to refuse, to stay safe in the background, but something in her voice made it impossible to say no. He nodded slowly. Ravi had never felt so nervous in his life. The alien princess, Arena, had asked him to walk beside her through the palace gardens, and now every step he took felt heavy. He kept glancing at the other humans in his group, hoping they might rescue him, but Ajay only gave him a small nod that seemed to say, go on. This is important. The garden around them shimmered with colors Ravi had never seen on Earth. Tall crystal trees sparkled like frozen rain, and glowing birds with long silver feathers flew overhead, their songs filling the air with soft music. Strange flowers opened and closed like tiny lanterns as Ravi and Arena walked past them. For a long moment, Arena did not speak. She simply walked at a calm pace, her silver hair shining in the light. Ravi's heart beat faster with every second of silence. He wondered if he should say something first, but before he could decide, the princess finally turned her head toward him. Tell me, human, she said in her clear, steady voice, what does it mean to be single? Ravi almost stumbled. He had thought she would ask about Earth's technology, or maybe about politics, but instead she went back to the very first question she had asked in the hall. He cleared his throat. On Earth, being single means not being married. A person is single when they have no husband or wife. They are free to live as they choose. Arena's eyes narrowed slightly, thoughtful. So it is a state of freedom. In our culture, most of my people are bound by arrangement before they reach maturity. It is rare for one to remain unbound. Ravi nodded slowly, not sure how much he should explain. Some people choose marriage, some choose to stay single. Both are normal for us. It depends on what they want. Arena's expression softened with interest. Choice, she repeated, as if testing the word. So your kind marries by desire, not by duty. Yes, Ravi said, surprised that she was so fascinated by something that seemed ordinary to him. On Earth, marriage is usually about love. People decide to spend their lives together because they care for one another. Arena stopped walking. Her gaze turned distant, and for a moment Ravi thought she might dismiss him. Instead, she said quietly, love. That is a word our historians use, but it is not a word we often live by. In our empire, duty stands before all things. I was bound by duty the moment I was born. Ravi looked at her carefully. She stood tall and regal, but he could see something in her eyes, a shadow of longing. He realized that even though she was a princess, maybe she did not have the freedom he always imagined royals had. Before he could reply, Arena suddenly smiled. "Tell me more about Earth. Tell me about your festivals. Do humans celebrate together?" The question caught Ravi by surprise, but he welcomed the change. He began to describe the festivals he knew. He told her about Diwali, where lamps filled the night with light. He told her about Eid, where families gathered to share food and joy. He even told her about New Year celebrations, where people hoped for better days ahead. As he spoke, Arena listened intently. Her eyes widened at the idea of millions of tiny lamps glowing in the dark. She laughed softly when he described how humans danced to loud music in crowded streets. "Your people sound so full of life," she said. "Our ceremonies are quiet, bound by tradition. They are beautiful, but they do not sound as free as yours." For the first time, Ravi relaxed. Talking about Earth made him feel at home. The nervous weight in his chest began to lift. He even found himself smiling as he spoke. But then Arena leaned closer, her voice dropping. "Tell me, Ravi, why do humans live such short lives? Your leaders told us the span of your kind is barely 100 years. For us, that is the blink of an eye." Ravi hesitated. It was true. Compared to her people, humans were fragile and brief. "Yes," he admitted, "our lives are short. But maybe that is why we value them so much. We know our time is limited, so we try to fill it with meaning." Arena tilted her head, studying him. "That is why you risk yourselves so easily? Because you have so little time." Ravi thought of the day before, when he had stood frozen in the great hall, embarrassed by her sudden question. He thought of the stories he had read of heroes on Earth who gave everything for family, friends, or even strangers. He shook his head slowly. "No. It's not only about time. It's about what we feel inside. Even if life were longer, I think we would still protect those we care about. That is what makes us human." For a moment, the princess said nothing. Her gaze rested on him as if she were searching for something beyond his words. Then she gave a small nod. "Perhaps that is why I find your kind intriguing." Ravi's face grew warm again. He was certain his ears had turned red, and he quickly looked away at the glowing trees. They continued walking, and Arena asked question after question. She wanted to know about human families, about food, about music. Ravi described how children played in the streets, how parents worked hard for their households, how rice and bread were common meals on Earth. When he spoke about songs and instruments, Arena asked him to hum a tune. Ravi, though shy, softly hummed an old melody his grandmother used to sing. The princess listened with closed eyes, as if the simple tune carried her somewhere far away. When he finished, she opened her eyes and said, "Your music is different from ours. Simpler, but warm." By the time they returned to the palace, Ravi felt as if hours had passed in a dream. The other humans were waiting, and they looked surprised when they saw him walking so casually beside the princess. Ajay gave him a questioning look, but Ravi could only shrug slightly. He himself did not understand why Arena had chosen to spend so much time with him. That evening, when the humans gathered in their chambers, Mira grinned again. "Ravi, you're making friends fast. The princess seems to like you." Ravi shook his head quickly. "No, she's just curious. That's all." Ajay, however, looked more serious. "Curious or not, this is unusual. Princess Arena is known to be distant from outsiders. If she shows interest in you, we must be careful. The court may not like it. But perhaps, this could also help us." Ravi lay awake again that night, his thoughts tangled. He remembered her questions, her laughter, the way she listened to his song. He remembered her eyes when she spoke of duty, and the shadow of sadness he had seen there. He did not know what tomorrow would bring, but he felt certain of one thing: this connection with Irina was only beginning, and it would change everything. The next morning began with a ceremony in the Grand Crystal Hall. The humans were invited to stand before the Alien Council, where leaders from the Empire gathered to discuss future relations with Earth. Ravi tried to keep his focus on Ajay, who stood tall and confident as he spoke about trade, knowledge, and peaceful cooperation. But Ravi soon noticed that the princess, Irina, was not listening to the speeches. Instead, her eyes kept drifting toward him. Every time their gazes met, Ravi quickly looked away, pretending to study the shining pillars of the hall. His teammates noticed too. Mira elbowed him gently when no one was watching, whispering, "Careful, Ravi. You're the center of attention again." After the council session ended, the humans were guided to a large chamber filled with alien artifacts and art. It was part of the cultural exchange, where each side would share their traditions. The humans had brought gifts from Earth: paintings, musical instruments, and even simple books that explained human history. The aliens, in turn, displayed their own creations: crystal carvings that glowed with inner light, tapestries woven with threads of energy, and instruments that made sounds beyond human hearing. Ravi wandered among the displays, fascinated. He had never imagined such beauty. One sculpture showed two figures holding hands, their bodies made of crystal threads that seemed to move on their own. Another display projected a moving scene of stars, as if the viewer stood in the middle of the universe itself. As Ravi leaned closer to study it, a voice spoke beside him. "Do humans see art as more than decoration?" Ravi turned and found Irina standing close. Her silver hair shimmered under the chamber's glow. For a moment he forgot how to breathe. Then he quickly nodded. "Yes. Art is how we show our feelings. Sometimes it tells stories. Sometimes it keeps memories alive." Irina's eyes softened with curiosity. "Show me." Ravi hesitated, then reached for one of the gifts Earth had brought, a small clay flute, painted with simple patterns. He held it carefully. "This is from my village. My grandfather played this. It is not perfect, but it holds meaning." Irina tilted her head. "Can you play it?" Ravi felt his face grow warm. He had played it as a child, but never in front of a princess. Still, he lifted it to his lips and blew gently. The soft tune filled the air, simple but full of warmth. It echoed strangely in the crystal chamber, mixing with the alien light until it felt like the music itself was glowing. When he finished, silence lingered. Then Irina said softly, "Your music is alive. It carries your heart. In our empire, art is bound by order. But yours seems free." Ravi smiled nervously. "That is what makes it special to us." As they spoke, Ravi noticed the nobles watching from a distance. Some of them looked displeased, whispering among themselves. He suddenly felt uneasy. Why was Irina giving him so much attention? Would this cause trouble? Later, during the meal in the banquet hall, Irina again surprised everyone. Instead of sitting beside her advisors, she walked over to the human table and sat near Ravi. The other humans stiffened in shock, but no one dared to protest. The alien servants placed dishes on the table: strange glowing fruits, soups that shimmered like liquid metal, and bread that melted on the tongue. Ravi tried to eat politely, though the flavors were unlike anything he had tasted before. Irina leaned closer. "Tell me, Ravi, what do humans eat when they gather with family?" Ravi wiped his hands and answered honestly. "Rice, bread, vegetables, sometimes meat. But the food is not the most important part. What matters is sitting together. Talking, laughing, sharing. That is what makes it special." Irina listened with fascination. "We dine in silence during royal feasts. Conversation is rare. But your way seems warmer." Mira whispered to Ravi under her breath, "She's treating you like her personal teacher." Ravi wished she would stop teasing, but he could not deny the truth. Over the next few days, the cultural exchange continued. Each morning, the humans learned about alien customs. They were shown how the Empire recorded history in glowing crystals, how their soldiers trained with energy blades, and how their scientists mapped the stars with living machines. Ravi was amazed, but he noticed that Arena often drifted away from the formal lessons to ask him about the small, ordinary things of human life. "Why do children play games?" she asked one day. "To learn and to be happy," Ravi answered. "Why do humans dance when no one commands them?" "Because music makes us feel alive." "Why do you give flowers as gifts?" "To show love, respect, or even apology." Each answer seemed to surprise her more. To Ravi, these were everyday truths. To her, they were treasures of a world she could only imagine. But as her interest grew, so did the whispers among the nobles. Ravi could feel their disapproval. Some of them frowned openly when the princess laughed at his simple jokes. Others muttered in their strange tongue whenever she chose to walk beside him. One evening, Ajay pulled Ravi aside. His expression was serious. "Listen carefully. The princess's curiosity may be harmless, but the court may not see it that way. If they believe you are distracting her from her duty, it could end badly for all of us. Be careful with what you say and do." Ravi swallowed hard. He had never wanted to be the center of attention. Yet somehow, without trying, he had become important to someone who mattered more than anyone else in the empire. That night, he stood by the window of his chamber, looking out at the alien city. Towers of crystal rose into the starry sky, their lights glowing like fireflies. He thought about Earth, about his small home, his family, the simple meals, the festivals. He thought about how strange it was that a princess from another world wanted to know about those small things. The next morning, as he joined the others in the garden again, Arena approached him with another question. "Ravi," she said, her voice calm but curious, "if humans value choice, then what would you choose, if you could decide your path freely?" Ravi looked at her, surprised. He had never expected such a question. He hesitated, then answered honestly. "I would choose a life where I could make my family proud. A life where I could help others, even in small ways. That would be enough for me." Arena studied him for a long time. Then she gave a small, almost secret smile. "Perhaps humans are not as fragile as some of my people think. Perhaps your strength lies in the heart, not the body." Ravi did not know what to say. All he knew was that each day with Arena made him feel like the world was changing around him and maybe inside him too. But far above the glowing gardens, in the high halls of the council, voices of discontent were rising. Not everyone was pleased with the princess's growing interest in a human. And soon, that unrest would test Ravi in ways he never imagined. The palace gardens had become Ravi's strange classroom. Every day, Princess Arena asked him new questions about human life, and every day Ravi tried his best to answer. He never imagined that simple things like festivals, songs, or family meals would interest a royal figure from another world. Yet Arena seemed eager to learn, and Ravi could not deny that he enjoyed these talks too. But outside the gardens, whispers had begun to grow louder. The alien nobles were displeased. Ravi could see it in their sharp glances and hear it in their low voices. They did not like how their princess spent so much time with a single human, especially one who was not a leader or a soldier but just a student. One evening, Ajay spoke to Ravi privately in their guest chamber. His tone was calm, but his words carried weight. "Ravi, listen carefully. You are not at fault, but the court believes you are distracting the princess. They think her attention should be on politics, not on you. If this continues, the council may take action. You must be cautious." Ravi nodded, though unease grew in his chest. He had not asked for this attention, yet he could not push Irina away either. She seemed so determined, so curious, and her gaze made it hard for him to refuse. The very next day, trouble arrived. The humans had been invited to watch a military demonstration in the training grounds outside the palace. The wide arena was filled with alien soldiers, their armor shining like liquid glass. They wielded energy blades that glowed with burning light. The soldiers moved in perfect patterns, their strikes fast and sharp, their discipline clear. Ravi watched with awe, realizing how advanced and dangerous this empire truly was. But while the demonstration continued, a sudden tremor shook the ground. The crystal towers nearby flashed with warning lights. Alarms rang, high and piercing, echoing across the city. Soldiers froze mid-step as commanders barked orders. Something was wrong. A guard rushed to Irina's side, speaking quickly in their language. The princess's calm expression tightened, and she turned to Ajay. There has been an attack. A rogue faction seeks to disrupt this alliance. They have breached the outer gates. Ajay stiffened. An attack here, in the capital. Before anyone could respond, the sharp sound of explosions filled the air. Parts of the arena wall cracked, and smoke began to rise. Soldiers ran to their positions, forming protective circles around the leaders. The humans were pushed back by guards, but in the chaos, Ravi found himself separated from his group. He looked around, heart racing, and saw Irina still standing tall at the center of the arena. Her guards tried to lead her away, but before they could move her, figures in dark armor leapt through the smoke. They were rebels, aliens dressed differently, their weapons crackling with unstable energy. Their eyes burned with anger as they charged toward the princess. Ravi froze. He had no weapon, no training, no plan. The smart choice was to hide, to stay safe until the soldiers regained control. But when he saw one of the rebels raise a glowing spear and aim it directly at Irina, Ravi's body moved before his mind could catch up. He ran. The world around him blurred. He heard shouts, saw flashes of light, but all he focused on was the princess. Without thinking, he threw himself forward, colliding with Irina just as the spear shot past. The weapon struck the ground where she had been standing, leaving a glowing mark that hissed with energy. Irina stumbled, surprised, but Ravi steadied her. "Stay low," he shouted, though his voice trembled. The guards rushed in, engaging the rebels in fierce combat. Blades of energy clashed, sparks flying through the smoky air. Ravi crouched beside Irina, shielding her with his body even though he knew he could do little against such weapons. Still, he refused to move aside. One rebel broke through the line and rushed toward them. Ravi's heart pounded. He grabbed the nearest object he could find, a broken staff dropped by a soldier. It was heavy and dull compared to the glowing blades, but Ravi held it tight. When the rebel lunged, Ravi swung the staff with all his strength. The impact was clumsy, but it was enough to knock the rebel off balance. A guard finished the fight moments later, striking the enemy down with a swift blow. Irina's eyes widened as she watched. "Ravi, you!" Before she could finish, more soldiers arrived, overwhelming the attackers. The alarms faded, and slowly, the smoke began to clear. The rebels who remained alive were captured and dragged away. The arena, once filled with training drills, was now littered with scorch marks and broken weapons. Finally, silence returned. Ravi lowered the broken staff, his hands shaking. His chest rose and fell quickly, and sweat covered his face. He had never been so afraid in his life. Irina stepped closer, her voice steady though her gaze was intense. "Why did you do that? You are fragile compared to us. You could have been killed." Ravi swallowed hard. I didn't think. I just saw the danger. I couldn't let them hurt you." Irina studied him for a long moment. Then, to Ravi's shock, she gave a small smile. Not the polite smile of a princess, but something softer, warmer. You are unlike anyone I have known, she said quietly. By then, Ajay and the other humans had found him. They were pale with worry. Ajay grabbed his arm firmly. Ravi, what were you thinking? You could have died. You must never take such risks again. But Arena raised her hand, silencing him. Do not scold him. His courage may have saved me today. The guards and nobles who overheard looked unsettled. Some whispered in disapproval, others in disbelief. A human student, untrained and unarmed, had acted when even seasoned guards had hesitated for a heartbeat. Later that evening, Ravi sat alone in his chamber, his body still trembling from the memory. He could hardly believe what he had done. He had never been a fighter. He had never wanted to be a hero. Yet, in that moment, he had acted without thought and it had changed everything. A knock at the door startled him. When it opened, Arena entered, her silver hair glowing faintly in the dim light. She dismissed the guards outside and stepped closer. You risked yourself, she said softly, her eyes never leaving his. Not for duty, not for reward, but simply because you cared. That is rare, even among my people. Ravi tried to speak, but words failed him. Arena placed her hand lightly on his arm. You have earned my trust, Ravi. And perhaps, you have shown me something my empire has long forgotten, the strength that comes not from power, but from heart. She left before he could reply, her presence like a whisper of light in the dark. Ravi sat in silence long after she was gone, his thoughts heavy and confused. He knew the council would not ignore what had happened today. He knew the whispers of the nobles would only grow louder. But deep inside, he also knew something had changed between him and the princess. And whatever path lay ahead, it would test not only his courage but the bond they had begun to form. The palace was quieter than usual after the attack. Guards doubled their patrols, and glowing shields now surrounded the outer gates. The rebels had failed, but their bold strike had shaken the empire. Everyone knew the council would gather soon to decide what steps to take. Ravi, meanwhile, could not shake the memory of that day. His body still ached from the struggle, and his hands trembled whenever he thought of the glowing spear that had nearly struck Arena. He had acted without thinking, but now the weight of it pressed down on him. He was no soldier, no warrior. He was just a student who had leapt into danger because his heart refused to stay still. That evening, as he sat in his chamber staring at the crystal walls, the door opened quietly. It was Arena. She stepped inside with her usual calm grace, though her eyes carried a softness that Ravi had never seen before. You are awake, she said gently. Ravi stood quickly. Princess, she raised her hand to stop him. No formalities. Sit. He hesitated, then sat back down. Arena crossed the room and lowered herself onto the seat opposite him. For a long moment, she said nothing. She simply studied him, as though trying to read the thoughts hidden in his face. Finally, she spoke. Why did you risk yourself that day? You knew you could not fight them, yet you stood in front of me. Ravi's throat tightened. He had asked himself the same question many times. But the answer, he realized, was simple. Because that is what we do. We protect those we care about, even if we are weak, even if we are afraid. At that moment, I couldn't think of anything else. Arena's silver eyes searched his face. But you are fragile compared to us. My guards are trained to protect me. Why should a human with no weapon choose to stand in their place? Ravi gave a small, uncertain smile. Because sometimes courage is not about strength. It is about doing what feels right, no matter the cost. The room fell silent. The soft glow of the crystal walls reflected in Arena's hair, making her seem almost otherworldly. Then, slowly, she smiled, not the distant smile of a princess, but something warmer, something real. You speak of courage as if it is your nature, she said. Perhaps that is why your kind interests me. Our empire values duty, order, and strength, but your people, you value choice, feeling, and spirit. That makes you dangerous, but also extraordinary. Ravi lowered his gaze, embarrassed. He had never thought of himself as extraordinary. He was just Ravi, a young man from Earth. Yet here was a princess of a mighty empire, telling him his spirit mattered. The following day, the council summoned Arena to answer for the attack. Ravi and the other humans were escorted to the chamber to observe. The hall was filled with nobles, their shimmering forms glowing with discontent. One elder spoke with a hard voice. This human endangered you, princess. He distracted you from your guards. His presence is a risk. Why should a fragile outsider remain near you? Another added, the rebels struck because they see weakness in our dealings with Earth. They see that even our princess is swayed by a mortal with no strength. Ravi's chest tightened as he listened. He wanted to defend himself, but Ajay touched his arm lightly, warning him to stay silent. Then Arena rose from her seat. Her voice rang clear across the chamber. You speak as if weakness is shameful. Yet it was not my guards who moved first. It was not my advisors who shielded me. It was the human, Ravi. Without weapon, without training, he stood before me. That is not weakness. That is spirit. The hall murmured with surprise. Arena continued, her eyes flashing with determination. You call humans fragile, but their strength is not in their bodies. It is in their hearts. They value life because it is short. They protect others because they choose to, not because they are commanded. That is courage our empire must respect. For a long moment, silence filled the council. Some nobles looked angry, others thoughtful. Ravi sat frozen, unable to believe what he was hearing. Arena was defending him, not as a curiosity, but as an example of something greater. The council did not reach a final decision that day, but Ravi knew something had changed. The princess's words had planted a seed, one that the nobles could not easily ignore. Later, in the garden, Ravi found himself walking with Arena again. The flowers glowed softly in the evening light, and the air carried the faint music of distant birds. You defended me, he said quietly. Arena glanced at him. Of course. You showed them what I could not. But I am just one person, Ravi said. I am not strong, not important. Arena stopped walking and turned to face him. Do you know what makes a person important, Ravi? It is not rank, or wealth, or power. It is the choices they make. You chose to protect me, though you had nothing to gain. That choice speaks louder than 1,000 titles. Ravi's heart raced. He wanted to reply, but no words came. Arena's gaze softened. Perhaps that is why I asked you, on the first day, if you were married or single. I wished to know if your heart was already bound. Because I could see, even then, that your spirit was different. Ravi's breath caught. He remembered that first moment, her strange question in the great hall. At the time, it had seemed absurd. Now, he understood it carried meaning far deeper than he realized. They continued their walk in silence, the weight of her words lingering between them. That night, Ravi lay awake once more, staring at the glowing ceiling. He thought about his small village back on Earth, about his family, about the life he had left behind. He thought about how strange it was that he, of all people, had become the center of such events. He did not know what the future held. The rebels were still out there. The council was divided. The Empire's fate, and perhaps Earth's place among the stars, hung in a fragile balance. But one thing had become clear. Arena trusted him. She saw something in him worth defending. And that trust gave Ravi a strength he had never felt before. Whatever came next, he would face it not as a soldier, not as a leader, but as a human. A human whose spirit, fragile though it seemed, carried a power even the stars could not ignore. The empire appeared calm on the surface, but beneath that calm, whispers spread like hidden fire. The failed attack on the palace had emboldened the rebels. They had shown that even the heart of power could be touched. While the council argued and the guards doubled their watch, the rebels moved in secret, planning their next strike. Ravi sensed the unease around him. Every corridor he walked through seemed heavier, every guard's glance sharper. He was no longer simply a guest, he had become a symbol. To some, he was a danger. To others, he was a curiosity. But to Arena, he was something different, someone who reminded her of values the Empire had forgotten. One evening, Ravi sat in the Grand Library, studying the glowing records that floated like holograms above the crystal tables. He read about the long wars the Empire had fought, the planets they had conquered, and the rebellions that had been crushed in silence. The Empire had built its power on discipline and fear, yet cracks were beginning to show. As Ravi turned another glowing page, Ajay entered quietly and sat across from him. His face looked tired, his voice low. "You have changed everything, Ravi," Ajay said. Ravi frowned. "What do you mean?" Ajay leaned closer. "Before you came, the princess was like the others, calm, distant, untouchable. But now she speaks of you in the council. She defends you before the elders. The rebels see this too. They believe you are proof that the empire can be shaken. That is why they will not stop." Ravi's stomach nodded. "So, because of me, things are getting worse." Ajay shook his head. "No. Because of you, things are being revealed. The empire cannot hide behind silence forever." Before Ravi could reply, a guard rushed into the library. His armor glowed faintly, and his voice carried urgency. "The princess requests your presence, both of you. Now." They hurried through the halls until they reached the inner chamber where Arena waited. Her silver eyes looked sharper than usual, her tone steady but serious. "The rebels have sent a message," she said. "They demand a meeting. They say if I do not come, they will strike again, this time not at the palace, but at the outer colonies. Thousands could suffer." Ravi's heart sank. "It's a trap." "Yes," Arena agreed. "But if I refuse, innocents will pay the price. That is something I cannot allow." Ajay clenched his fists. "It is too dangerous, princess. Let the guards handle it." But Arena shook her head. "The rebels are not seeking a battle. They seek to be heard. If I do not listen, their anger will grow. I will go." Ravi looked at her in disbelief. "You cannot go alone." Her eyes met his. "I was not planning to. That is why I called you." Ravi blinked. "Me? Why me?" "Because," Arena said softly, "you see people differently. You do not look only at their power, their status, or their anger. You look at their hearts. That is something even I struggle to do." Ravi felt the weight of her words. He had never imagined he would stand beside a princess in such matters, yet here he was, being asked to face danger not as a warrior but as a voice of humanity. The next day, a small vessel carried Arena, Ravi, Ajay, and a handful of guards beyond the palace. They flew across glowing skies and landed in the shadow of the mountains, far from the shining towers of the empire's capital. The rebels were waiting. They stood in a wide cavern, their armor less polished than the empire's guards but their faces determined. At their center stood a tall figure with dark eyes and a scar running across his cheek. His voice carried both anger and sorrow. "Princess of the Empire," he called out, "you come at last. Do you know why we fight?" Arena stepped forward, calm and steady. "You believe the Empire has forgotten justice. You believe we have grown blind to suffering." The rebel leader nodded sharply. "And are we wrong?" Silence stretched. Ravi, standing beside Arena, felt the tension like a weight. He could see the rebels' faces not of monsters, but of people who had lost too much. His heart pounded. He wanted to say something, yet he feared his voice would only add fire. Finally, Arena spoke. Perhaps you are not wrong. The Empire has made mistakes. But rebellion and blood will not heal them. Tell me what you want, and let us seek another way. The leader's eyes narrowed. You speak of peace, but peace has never fed the hungry. Peace has never freed the silenced. We want freedom from your chains. Ravi felt something stir in him. Before he realized it, he stepped forward. His voice shook, but he forced himself to speak. Then listen, Ravi said. I am not of this empire. I am human, from a small world you do not know. My people are fragile. We have no great fleets, no mighty empires. Yet we know what it means to fight for dignity. We know what it means to suffer under powers greater than us. And we know one truth: you cannot build a future only on anger. Anger burns, but it does not grow. Only hope grows. The cavern grew quiet. The rebels watched him, confused yet curious. The leader studied Ravi with narrowed eyes. And you, human, what hope do you offer? Ravi swallowed hard. The hope that even enemies can change. The hope that people can choose to be better than yesterday. If a human like me can stand beside a princess of the stars, then maybe the empire can stand beside its people. If we give up on hope, then all that is left is endless war. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Arena added, let us not trade lives for pride. Tell me your demands. If they are just, I will carry them to the council myself. The leader hesitated. His soldiers shifted uneasily. For the first time, their anger seemed uncertain. But before any agreement could be reached, a sudden blast shook the cavern. From the shadows, another group of rebels rushed in, not to talk, but to kill. They carried weapons that glowed with dangerous energy, and their cries filled the air with fury. The meeting had been betrayed. Guards raised their shields, rebels drew blades, and chaos erupted in the cavern. Ravi froze, heart racing, until he saw Arena in danger once more. A rebel charged toward her, weapon raised high. Without thinking, Ravi threw himself forward, grabbing a broken staff from the ground. He swung clumsily but with all the strength he had. The clash of wood against metal rang out, and the rebel stumbled back. Ajay rushed to his side, covering him with practiced strikes. Stay close, Ravi. The cavern became a storm of light and sound. Arena's voice rang above the chaos, commanding both sides to stop, but few listened. In that moment, Ravi realized the truth. This was not only a fight between rebels and empire. It was a fight between fear and hope, between those who wanted destruction and those who longed for change. The cavern was alive with chaos. Sparks of energy flew in every direction as soldiers clashed with rebels. The air was thick with smoke and tension, but Ravi's focus remained on Princess Arena. She moved with calm precision, her silver hair catching the glow of the weapons around them. She was strong, yes, but she was still in danger, and Ravi could not let her fall. He ducked under a swinging blade and stumbled forward, gripping his broken staff tightly. Though it was no match for the rebels' glowing weapons, Ravi's courage and determination made him act with a force beyond his size. Every strike he blocked, every movement he made, was guided by his one thought: protect her. Arena noticed. Her sharp eyes softened as she saw Ravi step again and again into danger, not because he had to, but because he chose to. In that moment, she realized what she had known all along: this human was extraordinary, not because of strength, but because of his heart. Ajay and the other guards formed a protective circle around them, but the rebels kept pressing. Suddenly, the leader who had first spoken of justice stepped forward, holding a weapon to the ground as he shouted over the clamor. Stop! Listen to me. This is pointless. For a moment, silence fell. The rebels hesitated, unsure. Arena raised her voice. Enough. Violence will not give you freedom. Speak your truths, and I will carry them to the council. But if you continue to strike blindly, you will only destroy what you wish to protect. Ravi stepped beside her, voice clear though steady only by force. I am human. I am small. I am fragile. But I understand your pain. You want change, and you are right to want it. But fighting like this only brings more suffering. If we speak and choose wisely, we can build a future together. Not as enemies, but as equals. The rebels' leader lowered his weapon slightly, studying the humans before him. You speak as if a human can teach the ways of the stars, he said slowly. Yet you speak truth. Arena took a careful step forward. If you trust me, then allow me to bring your words to the council. Let us find justice together, without spilling more blood. The leader looked at Ravi. And you? Why do you risk yourself for a princess you barely know? Ravi felt his heart beat faster. Because she is human enough to care. Because I believe the right choice is stronger than fear. Because protecting her is the right thing to do. For a long moment, the cavern was silent. Then the leader signaled the others to lower their weapons. Slowly, the tension eased. The rebels stepped back, allowing Arena and her human companions to lead the way. Once outside, the sun glowed softly over the mountains. The calm light seemed to wash away the chaos of the cavern. Arena turned to Ravi. You risked yourself once again, she said, her voice gentle. Do you know what that means? Ravi shook his head. I only did what I felt I had to do. Arena smiled, softer than ever. It means you have earned my trust fully. You have shown courage beyond what even my empire can expect from its own. Ravi felt warmth spread through him, a feeling he had never experienced before. Pride, yes, but more than that, a connection that went deeper than words. He realized that no matter the distance between Earth and her empire, no matter the differences of species and culture, trust and courage were universal. That evening, the council convened in the palace. The rebels' demands were presented by Arena herself. Ravi and Ajay were present as witnesses, but it was Arena who carried the weight of the discussion. She spoke of hope, of fairness, and of the value of every life. She spoke of Ravi's courage, using it as an example of what it meant to act with heart and spirit, not only power and authority. The council deliberated for hours, but Ravi could see the change. Nobles who had been harsh and rigid now spoke more carefully. They could not ignore what had happened. The bravery of a human and the wisdom of their princess had reshaped the conversation. Finally, the head elder spoke. The empire will hear the demands of the people and the rebels. There will be reforms. Justice will be examined. And we will honor the courage of those who risked themselves to bring peace. The chamber erupted in quiet approval. Ravi felt a weight lift from his chest. The fear, the uncertainty, the danger, all of it had led to this moment. After the council, Arena invited Ravi to walk with her in the palace gardens. The glowing trees swayed softly in the evening breeze, their crystal leaves reflecting the last light of the sun. You have changed more than this council, Arena said, her voice calm, almost shy. You have changed me. Ravi looked at her, surprised. Me? Yes, she said, eyes shining. You reminded me that courage does not require power. That trust is stronger than fear. That even someone fragile, someone small, can carry hope and inspire change. Ravi felt his heart swell. I only did what anyone would do, he said quietly. No, Arena replied firmly. Most would not. Most would hide, or flee, or obey without thought. You acted with your heart. That is rare, Ravi. That is why you matter. For the first time, Ravi saw the princess not as distant royalty, but as someone human enough to dream, to hope, to feel deeply. And for the first time, he felt that he could meet her on equal ground not because of strength, but because of the bond they had forged. The days that followed were calm. The rebels were reintegrated into society under fair terms, and reforms began to take shape. Ravi continued to walk the gardens with Arina, answering her questions, learning more about her people, and sharing stories of Earth. One evening, as the stars shone above the palace towers, Arina turned to him. "Ravi," she said softly, "when I first saw you, I asked if you were married or single. Now I understand why. I wanted to know if your heart was your own. And now I see that it is not only free, it is brave, kind, and true." Ravi's face flushed, but he met her gaze steadily. "It is my heart," he said. "And I choose to stand with you, if you will let me." Arina smiled, a gentle, radiant smile that lit the night. "Then together, we will face whatever comes next. Not as princess and student, not as alien and human, but as allies, as friends, as something stronger than fear." Ravi felt a warmth spread through him unlike anything he had ever known. For all the danger, all the uncertainty, and all the challenges they had faced, he understood now that courage, trust, and choice could bridge even the widest gaps in the universe. Under the glowing stars, in the gardens of the alien empire, a human and a princess stood side by side. Their bond was no longer defined by distance, species, or duty, it was defined by heart. And together, they would shape the future of both their worlds. The galaxy was vast, and the challenges were far from over, but Ravi knew one truth that nothing could take away: even the smallest human spirit, guided by courage and trust, could shine brighter than the stars.